Alright, so let's talk about some of the tools that can help aid in building a responsive website. And there's just a ton of tools out there. If you Google responsive web design tools, you'll just get a whole slew of information and different applications that can help with various things. In this section, I'm just going to go over some of the popular ones as well as some of the ones that I've used myself. Responsive layout tools can include text editors, design tools, frameworks, which is a huge one. There's a ton of frameworks, device emulators, code verification, documentation, and testing applications. And I'm sure there's more, but these are just some of the popular ones. So design tools. Designs and the design process are changing rapidly. And what I mean by that is if you look at the majority of the websites with really nice designs, they're much different than what they were, say, 5 years ago. And they're also much simpler, which is kind of an advantage for us as designers and developers. But the downside is that the tools that we've used up until recent times, they're not really doing the trick anymore as far as designing for multiple devices and responsive design. Photoshop is something that I've used for a long time. It's basically my go-to application when it comes to creating websites, but there's not much support for responsive web design. So most of the tools that are used for responsive web design are browser based, and you don't have the flexibility that you do with Photoshop as far as images and background images and stuff like that. One tool that I haven't used yet but is supposed to be built for responsive web design is Adobe Edge Reflow. And I haven't had the pleasure of using it, so I can't really review it or tell you about it, but I know that it is geared towards responsive web design. Now, Photoshop, Fireworks, Illustrator, I'm not saying that these are going to be obsolete or not to use them. You just got to kind of use them in a different way. I guess can create multiple PSDs for each device or something like that. So there's a lot of in-browser tools. There's one called Easel, which I like. It's pretty easy to use. Another one is Frunt. I haven't used, but I've heard that it works pretty well. Responsive IS. And then we have a ton of grid systems that you can use for design and wireframing, like Bootstrap, Less, Skeleton, Fluid Grids, and there's a ton more. So I'm actually going to show you a little of the Easel application in the next video. So standalone text editors and IDEs. There are hundreds of editors out there, and you probably have one that you use all the time, or maybe one for specific languages. If you want a fast, simple, and free solution, Notepad++ is great. That's what we're going to be using. Sublime Text 2, great. And TextMate for Mac, I really enjoy. Now, if you want a more powerful solution and you want an open source solution, NetBeans and Eclipse are really powerful. I would say that they're pretty much overkill if we're just doing HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. That's more if you're into PHP or Java development, stuff like that. And some other choices are Dreamweaver and WebStorm. Those are commercial, they're not free, and probably overkill, at least for the stuff that we're doing here. And we've seen a rise in popularity with web text editors and IDEs. So these are maybe Chrome extensions or just applications that run in the browser that I've actually found really useful. For instance, Dablet. I I recently started using, and I enjoy it because what you're coding, there's a window. You can open another window that shows what you're coding in real time. It shows the design, so I really like that. Mozilla Thimble, JS Fiddle is pretty popular. JS Bin, Cloud9, Code Mirror, and Code Anywhere is a really great. I'm not even sure if it's a Chrome plugin or what, but I've used it, and you can get access to your GitHub account as well as your Dropbox account, so you can edit any files in there. So that works really well. Frameworks. I don't have enough time in the day to go over all the frameworks that are available. Bootstrap is probably the most popular. Another one is Foundation. Gumby, HTML5 boilerplate I've used, which is pretty well. Skeleton and HTML Kickstart. Those are just some of the frameworks that are available. Let's see, wireframing. Wireframing and dealing with a framework are kind of in the same category, at least to me, in the way that I build responsive websites. But there are some tools that you can use to, I guess, build just a basic layout or a wireframe without images or any of that. And one of the most popular is Wirefy, which you can get at getwirefy.com. And there's also a bunch of Bootstrap PSDs that are out there if you want to work with Bootstrap and you want to use Photoshop. So you can, have your images and everything lined up in a nice grid that you can easily transfer to HTML Bootstrap. Jetstrap I haven't used, but I've heard is a pretty nice application. Responsive wireframes. This is pretty much just a link to a web page that shows you different columns and how you could arrange them in a responsive way, which I'll actually show you in the next video. And then we have Style Tiles, which offers a PSD of a wireframe, of a layout, I guess, that you could design your responsive site with in Photoshop. Testing tools. One great testing tool that I always use is Matt Kersley's responsive design tool. It'll show you what your application or your website will look like on all different sizes and devices. StudioPress, I believe, is also by Matt Kersley. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but that's pretty much does the same thing as his tool. ProtoFluid is I actually haven't used that, and I haven't used Respondinator either, but I've heard good things about them, and that's why they're on here. Chrome plugins, there's a ton of those as well. Some popular ones are Responsive Website Tester, which you can just test each site that you visit on the go in different layouts. Same thing with Dimensions, VNC Viewer, and Responsive Inspector. So a lot of these things do the same thing, they're just different applications. So once you learn one, you pretty much know all of them. So those are some of the tools that we can use in responsive web design or web design in general. Feel free to look around on the internet and find some others. There's some really great applications out there. So that's it for this section or this video, and I'll create another video showing you some more about some of these tools.